Thomas, we're back, my friend. Special guest. The moment I've been waiting for.
Thank God. It's not just you and me. Karen, how are you?
I am doing great. It's so good to see both of you.
You can't just call her by a first name. Yeah. Karen the Super Trader.
I'm sorry. No, Karen the Super Trader.
Karen is fine. Karen is lovely.
Did you ever know growing up that you would be referred to on the streets, hey, it's the Super Trader?
No. I must give you credit for giving me my 15 minutes of fame in my life, as I was just at the Invest Tools conference in Dallas.
Oh, my God.
Flew here from there.
You're going to be bigger than T. Boone Pickens down there.
It's so strange.
Yeah.
I got my picture taken with T. Boone. I went, when I stood next to him, I said, thank you for putting up with this. He said, oh, they're paying me. So, well, then.
Hold on. I didn't even know you were going. Oh, my God. You must have been like the queen of the castle.
It was interesting. I've never quite experienced something like that in my life. But I did bring the conference manual with me. And I noticed as I went through it, a picture of you in it.
And the conference
with a quote, you know you're a trader when you're wrong and you still make money. So I thought,
what's that quote again? I need to know that
quote. I am a real trader because I'm wrong a lot and I still make money. So
yeah, but I'm wrong a lot too, and I'm not making any money right now. So help me. You guys, okay. I'm going to be taking less than you. Actually, I didn't even know you were there, and I'm sure that a lot of people that made their whole trip.
Well, I won't speak for them, but it was interesting and it's different to be recognized. It's really strange. No, very nice people. Oh, really humbling to meet people who recognize me. But thanks to you for what you've done for all those traders. They all know you. So
yeah, that's fun. But that's just because, we're just loud and obnoxious sometimes.
Oh.
That's all.
Number of occurrences for us is what it is. Yes.
We're in front of so many people every single day that, it just eventually it seeps down through.
Look at what you've created. You've created this from scratch.
A monster, yeah.
He tells me every day, I made you, Bat, and I can destroy you. So, yes. Thank you so much.
Karen, we are so we didn't even talk about this week because we wanted to have some fun today.
Yeah, well, I'm just stopping by to say hi. So
I know. That's why we stole you because
here.
Grabbed her basically off the street, and we got a bunch of question stuff. But something that just so everybody knows. So Karen's really we tried to preface this before you were even on. So we were talking about you before you even know what we were saying, and I said I'm not even sure how to classify Karen. Tony? I mean, it's like
sure.
we've had trouble just putting you in the right bucket, as Christy would say, because you're an accountant too. So yes. Christy and you bucketize accountants bucketize everything.
We do.
And you have to find us. It's that tick and tie thing. You have to find out where you.
Yes, details are wonderful.
So you told me this year. First of all, how much money are you managing? Approximately.
It's moving toward $300 million.
Moving towards $300 million. And they're up 11% this year, which is remarkable because I think it's a really tough year. And if I don't know if you know this, but the hedge fund average this year is 0 after fees.
I've read that in the Wall Street Journal.
Yes. And so you're 11%.
And 11.5 after expenses. That's net to our investors.
That's amazing.
It is amazing.
And you said something else. You're approaching a milestone of $100 million in profits. Now, I would love to take you and put you in front of a Senate subcommittee so that they can actually see.
Please.
I know you're going to have
a retail investor.
You're going to have a heart attack. But I really need somebody that's made $100 million on a retail platform that any person can have using the strategies where everybody says it can't be done because the only way that people can make money is essentially through some high frequency mechanism. You are an amazing story, and if I sound like I'm putting you on a pedestal, it really is because we're still fascinated, and we're in the middle of the fire every single day. Why don't you
come to see me then, and I'll show you. You can sit in my trading room with me.
I would pay for that to happen.
I don't know.
You just can't say where I live. So
I don't know if I'm enough of a man to handle that. I can't even use my own GPS system. I'm not really sure I can handle it. But yeah, we would have to broadcast from there. That's the problem. I'm not sure that's so cool. But someday we need to. Karen, I've been saving questions, and all along we've protected privacy. We try to get nowhere outside of what we just talked about. But so many people are fascinated by what you do. But the number one question that comes into us all the time, and we're fielding Karen, talking about Karen is part of our everyday You know, we just throw it in there as like you become almost a verb.
That's true.
You're like a trading verb. You know, someday they're going to write trading books. A straddle, a strangle, Karen. That's what it's going to be. The question that always comes, the question that people ask Tony and I all the time is, in order to do what you do in the products that you use, which is primarily the S&P 500 indices.
It's broad-based indexes.
Yes. To do what you do means that no matter how you slice it up, you have to take an extraordinary amount of risk at times. And when you have this kind of risk on and volatility is cheap, and we all know that volatility is mean reverting. How do you deal with both the real risk and then kind of the emotional consequence of that risk, meaning having to think about it all the time?
Well, I think about it all the time. I hate where we are in the market. I've hated where we've been in the market for over 2 years. This VIX below 12 is just very difficult. It's interesting that the most difficult times for me to trade is in an environment like this.
So going into it, would you have thought that volatility, like when you first started years ago, that if volatility was nice and low and the market, that would mean there was little movement in the market, that would be the best strategy for you?
No, I've never felt that way. This potential of a strong pullback, I think that's real. So we have to be very cautious on the downside.
Right. So what do you do? Like specifically, how do you deal with that? Your positions, assume you're delta neutral. Okay. So you don't have to say you're long or whatever it is. Assume you're delta neutral. You still have a lot of outlier risk. How do you deal with the outlier risk?
On the again, the difficult side is on the call side. On the put side, we look for those wonderful opportunities like the last day of July when the market fell strongly. We were just throwing on puts.
Short puts, when you say it.
Yes, short puts.
Yeah.
As much as we could. But we're trying to stay.
Is that because you didn't have inventory already and you were waiting for a day like that?
Waiting. Okay. We wait for those pullbacks, to put on puts when the market's high. We can't get far enough away where we feel safe with it. In this environment, what I like to do is stay 200 points away on the put side. This environment just does not make the money decent enough to go 200 points away. So we've been pulling up to about 150 on certain days, depending on what the market's doing. We'll be trading 100 points down on the put side. 200
points. I want to just make sure everybody understands. 200 points away is a 10% move in the market. Okay.
I am looking for a 10% pullback, but my crystal ball is not better than anyone else. But we also use our Analyze tab. We're Thinkorswim traders. We also use our Analyze tab and look at the market we trade as if the market has already fallen at least 100 points, and then we go 12% down below that. So we've almost got a 17% down move on that we could
because 100 points is 5%, sustain, and then you go 12% beyond that.
That we could sustain if we had to. I don't want to see that happening, and if that did happen, we would be moving positions like crazy to get into a safer environment. We also have an overall goal of only using about 50% of our investable assets and keeping about 50% of cash on the side. And depending on the variables, where are we in the market? When are positions going to expire? We'll inch that up to 60 or 70% use of the cash. But overall strategy is to stay with about 50% of the cash.
Are you still entering trades with about 55 days to go? And are you still trying to roll those profits at the first kind of, whether it's 15, 20, 25%? Are you still being aggressive in that regard, even in this low volatility environment?
We do start around 50, 52 days. We will roll in the weeklies, but the way we account for our gains to our investors, we don't roll from month to month. We let each month stand on its own. So in the month of August, we will not roll anything from August into September. If I was trading my personal account, I would definitely roll to the next month if I was in trouble.
That's just a function of, because you're a professional money manager, and it's harder for you to manage I'm assuming, new monies and where your start point is.
Yes, it is.
Okay. Yeah.
And speaking of weeklies, in Dallas, you were mentioned from the stage of being one of the people who helped get weeklies started
we were
in the market.
People.
And but they also said you had a different name for weeklies. You wanted to call them a quickie.
It's true. It's a true story.
So that got a big laugh at the conference.
The exchange didn't like it, but it's actually a true story. It was Tom Preston and myself.
Yeah.
So do you use futures at all now?
We do. We've always used futures.
Right.
I have a trading strategy that I developed where we speculate with futures, but we also hedge with futures. We're carrying short futures.
How much
right now.
of your positions are hedged with futures, and how much of your positions, or how much of your capital do you use to speculate with futures? And is the reason that you speculate just to improve basis?
It varies all over the place. You've got to look at the variables: where the market is, where's the expiration, what are we seeing, what are the charts telling us. We keep that on a lower side. The speculation is a small portion of our portfolio.
That's just part of your market
I don't
awareness.
Want to be out there rocking and rolling.
Yeah.
But we have a very successful future strategy that we have the confidence in playing, but we still keep that a low part of our portfolio.
So how much of your futures trading goes into hedging? Most of it? And how much of the big picture is that? Because that's the thing that confuses people. Like, how much capital should they commit to, to something like using futures as an offset to some of the option positions?
Well, of course, that depends a lot on how much capital you have. The smaller you have, the less you should be dealing with futures.
Yeah.
We'll probably use 20-25% at any given time to hedge.
So, Karen, one question that comes in that we get a lot is, so with volatility lower, and I think you started to talk about this before, but with volatility below some historical mean, then do you look at your net lick and your total capital committed differently when volatility is cheaper? Like, how do you make that adjustment? Like right now with volatility cheap, how do you adjust the size of your positions, total capital committed versus your net lick?
The strategy stays pretty much the same. We just make less money. We have come up higher on the put side as far as the strikes that we'll sell at. Depending, again, on the length of time we have to stay in that position. But the overall strategy stays similar. That's why in 2011, we were making a 50% return. In 2014, we're making an 11% return. That all comes down to the volatility.
You mentioned before that you were a little nervous about your call side. And because your call side is actually closer to the money than your put side.
Right.
But the call side seems to give you, there's less of a undefined risk on the call side. Is that the way you would think about it, or no?
No, actually, the calls with this slow creep up, I mean, it's very, very difficult. I don't like calls. I don't like calls at all.
Neither do we.
But I don't want to leave money sitting there on the table either. So we do play. We try to get as far out as we can on the call side, and we're making $1 per contract and trying to keep those positions safe. We have enough capital. We've got enough cash sitting on the sidelines that very often we're having to take the call positions off, roll them forward if we can roll in the weeklies, or just moving them over to the put side, and that's kept us
Getting
quite
back
active.
to the to the question that a lot of people hit us with, if there was an outlier event, and we're not talking about a 5 or 7 or 10% move in a short period of time, we're talking about maybe a 20% move or a 25% move in a short period of time, which would probably be to the downside, not the upside. Right. In the unlikely event of that happening, because we haven't seen anything like that for a while, there would be, the first thing that would happen is portfolio margin and margins for futures and everything else would obviously go up. And there might be some, more chaotic quotes and markets and things like that. How would you deal with it? Are you just saying, like, hey, we're prepared for that because we've stressed our positions down to like down 25% and down 30%? Or how does Karen deal with that,
I didn't live through the October 1987 crash. I did trade through the flash crash of 2010, the slam dance of 2011,
That's what you call it, the slam dance of 27. Tony calls that the flash dance.
The flash dance. It's funny you ask that question because I'm right now involved in a very healthy discussion about what we can do to protect ourselves. There are triggers in the market that weren't there in 1987.
You mean so there are
we shouldn't be able
breakers.
to. There are circuit breakers. Yes. We shouldn't experience a 20% drop in a day, but a 10%. A 10% drop, a 15% drop, we could handle based on our just current strategy that we're using. Mm-hmm. I want to make that safer. So I don't have an answer yet of what we're going to be doing, but I want to make that stronger. We're pulling back and doing a very in-depth analysis of that potential risk and what we can do to make ourselves safer. I've got a meeting at Thinkorswim when we finish this, and it's going to be focused for a couple of hours on that question.
Karen,
how we can be safer.
Yeah. To piggyback a little bit on that, not the outlier move, but just on your overall mechanical strategy. You talked about in the last videos how around, if an option becomes around a 30 delta, you look to roll it. Is that kind of like a hard rule for you? Like it doesn't matter amount of time left to expiration or anything like that? Do you just roll it when it's that 30-ish delta?
The variables do matter.
They do.
If expiration is today and I'm at a 30 delta and I'm looking at the position, I'll probably let it stay.
Got it.
But if it's 3 or 4 weeks out, then I'm going to pay close attention to it. I don't want to push it to the limits and then be all stressed out about what am I going to do with this position. So I like to go ahead and clean it up. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. But Tom says I'm a trader anyway, according to his quote, that I can be wrong and still make money.
The simple answer to this big question is that you have to be proactive because there's no way you can be reactive into that huge decline if it ever happens. So the way to be proactive about it is potentially to always maintain a short delta on some portion of the portfolio, which is then costly if you continue to grind up. But the other side to that is that's how you protect yourself. 20% down, it may get you to 25%.
Right. It helps take the emotion out of it too.
Yeah, sure.
I don't want. I'm fortunate in that greed is not part of my personality, but neither is fear because over my learning period,
nobody
training
ever accused
period,
you of being fearful.
I've gotten the confidence of knowing what to do in those situations. But that came with a lot of hard work and a lot of time. But being proactive, I love that word, it takes the emotion out of it. I don't have to sit there and say, oh my goodness, what's going to happen? Oh my goodness, what am I going to do? Just go ahead and deal with it and fix it and move on. And that's served us well over the years.
So we get that question all the time, Karen. We get, well, why doesn't Karen maintain, which you very well may, why doesn't Karen maintain just a bunch of short deltas, which she's just willing to eat the drag cost, if for nothing else, the carrying cost and the grind cost, but for peace of mind. And I'm thinking, well, that makes the most sense, but I'm not sure, like I've never figured it out how big a drag that really is.
Maybe the next time, if you ever invite me back, maybe the next time I am exploring and paper trading some new ideas how to make more money on the call side that's just a little more conservative. Because this slow grind up is just absolutely killing me. I don't like dealing with it.
Welcome to my world.
I am in your world.
Boy, I wish it was killing me for an 11% return.
Do you know what's really funny is that the great thing about you is you'll sit here and you'll go, I just came back from an Investors conference and I'm paper trading something, and people are like listening to us going, that's me without the 300 million.
Right.
It's just like, and it hits home with so many people. It's so. The influence, the power, well, really the influence that you have, and it's a good influence. It's a positive influence on so many people. You have no idea what just 15 minutes on the show is worth. It's awesome.
What I loved, so many people ask me about the nonprofit and the work we're doing in Africa, and that thrilled me. That they're getting both sides of the message because we've got a for-profit and a not-for-profit coming together to make a difference in the world, and that's my passion. That's what
we can barely handle the for-profit side. The non-profit side just blows us away. We're just not that good. We already had that discussion.
Well, I started trading with a $10,000 account. And I'm just stubborn enough that every time I lost, I said, all right, I learned something great from that. I won't do that again. And so I built a career out of saying, I won't do that again. And that's what's gotten me to where I am today.
You'll like this. We had a professor here the other day just visiting from Wake Forest, and she's a she's a biologist, and she studies bees. And I said, what about Karen? Because she knew, she doesn't know you, but she knows of you. And she's like, oh, she's my inspiration, and it was really funny because she's like a neuroscientist, and it's really funny how you've reached into so many people's lives, just because part of it is the social impact side, but the other side is just we're all fascinated. You make it seem, you downplay it like it's nothing, but it's way bigger than nothing because
anybody who's trading knows how difficult it is.
That's right. It's not putting the position on for the first time. It's putting the positions you put on for the 100th, for the 10,000th time in a row.
Well,
but that's your key to success.
And I've surrounded myself with some very smart people in the office, so I love the brain trust that sits in that office.
That's my problem. I didn't surround myself with smart people.
I was just going to say, when does Tom moonlight at your place? Because he must be leaving all the good stuff there, because he doesn't bring anything
Can you send
here.
some of those smart people up here? I need taking me down. I knew it was all your fault.
Most of those people have been in classes that you've taught. So
this is crazy. It's such a great story. Thank you so much for coming, just giving us 15, 20 minutes. It's awesome. It really does help our entire view best. It's just great. Thanks, Karen.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Karen. Your time is valuable. We appreciate it. We're going to be back in about 90 seconds. We got a bootstrapper next. This is Taste Trade Live.